So let's have our first example. So the coefficient of kinetic friction between block A and the table is 0.2. Also, mass A is 25 kilograms and mass B is 15 kilograms. How far will the block drop in the first 3 seconds after the system is released? Parang hirap ng paunang example natin. Okay, class. So, tinatanong sa atin ano yung displacement. Tama ba ako? Displacement. So, kung initially, atres ang mga to, so that means ang V initial ng A is 0. So, at the same time, ang V initial ng B ay also 0. So, ang tinatanong ay, after 3 seconds, gaano daw ka, ayan, ang tinravel niya. So, ano yung distance or displacement ng B? Sandali, di ba naglalag yung, ano ko? Ano yung displacement daw nung B after 3 seconds? Ayan. So, kung time natin ay 3 seconds, ano ang displacement na yan? So, anong target natin? So, we have initial velocity 0. We have the time. So, kailangan lang natin ay we cannot find final velocity. Ang chance natin ay acceleration. So, yung acceleration natin, kukunin natin siya sa second law. Diba? Ang second law ay equal siya sa MA. So, therefore, kukunin natin yung acceleration sa second law. Pag nakuha na natin yung acceleration, pwede na tayong gumamit ng kinematic equation. Okay? Ayan. So, kunin natin ang acceleration sa second law. And then after that, we will apply kinematics in one dimension. Okay. So, unang gagawin natin is we need to identify all the forces acting on each object. Okay? So, una, ang mass 1 or mass A ay, so meron siyang weight. So, let's call that weight A. Ano pa? Class, dali, no? Medyo... Let's continue. Ayan. So, first is we need to identify all the forces acting on each object. Okay, object per object tayo, remember. So, we need to identify normal, frictional force, applied force, tension, and even the weight, and the acceleration, of course, the direction of it. So, if we are given this first object, so what are the forces acting on it? So, una yung weight. What else? Since meron siyang tali, we have a tension. And attention and direction of tension is always away from the object. So if this is the object, so tension is always away from it. Okay, since meron siyang surface, we have the normal force. And meron tayong coefficient of friction between the table and the block. So therefore, there's also frictional force. Anong direction ng frictional force? Okay, ang frictional force natin is since ang acceleration niya is in this direction. Ayan. So therefore, it's opposite the motion. So nandito yung ating frictional force. Okay, meron pa? Okay, wala na. Now let's have the second object. So what are the forces acting on the second object? So we have the weight, don't forget that. So we have weight V. And then we have the tension. Okay, do we have a normal force? So wala. Kasi wala namang, hindi naman siya nasa surface. Wala siya sa surface, so wala siyang normal force. Meron ba siyang friction? Wala nga siyang normal, so walang frictional force. So, yan lang. So, ang acceleration naman niya is since ito ay bababa pag pupuntang kanan, so tendency ito ay bababa. So, ang acceleration nito ay bababa. So, let's have it as negative. Okay? So, saan natin siya umpisahan? Okay, umpisahan ko na lang siya sa B, no? Okay, sa B ako magsisimula. Okay, so let's have the FBD for mass B. Okay, so ito yung FBD natin. So what are the forces acting along B? So we have the tension, and then we have yung weight B. Okay, don't forget the direction of the acceleration is downward. Okay, since wala naman tayong forces along X, so therefore, let's have the summation of forces along Y is equal to MAY. So lahat ng pataas ay positive. So what are the forces acting along Y? So we focus only the forces along Y. Pag pataas, positive. Pag pababa, negative. So tension is pataas, so that's why it's positive. And weight is pababa, that's why that is negative. So T minus W. So that's equal to, what's our mass? So that's mass B. And then acceleration natin ay, anong direction niya? Pababa. So that should be negative A. Okay. Question? Ayan. So let's continue. So that is mass times weight B is mass of B times gravity is equal to mass of B times negative A. So that's tension minus, what's this? B is 15. 15 times 9.8 is equal to negative 9, negative 15. 15 A. Okay, so tension minus 15 times 9.8, so that's around 147, is equal to negative 15A. So let this be our first equation. First equation. Next. Yeah, let's draw the FBD of our mass A. So mass A, so FBD, ayan, FBD ng mass A. So let's identify all the forces. So we have tension to the right, tension. We have normal A, upward. And then we have weight A, downward. And then yung frictional force to the left. Okay, so apat lang. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the direction of the acceleration is to the right. So that's a positive acceleration. Ayan. Okay. Okay, class. Tatandaan nyo to. Tatandaan nyo to. Huwag nyo kakalimutan. It will save you some time if you remember this. If we have a coefficient of kinetic friction, the first thing that you need to find in the FED of a particular object with coefficient of friction is the normal force. Lagi. Because that is the only way to connect X from Y. It's through the normal force because normal force is related to friction. We cannot get friction without the normal force. Okay? Unless the frictional force is already given, wala nang kailangan hanaping normal force. Pero kung given a coefficient of friction, unahin yung hanapin yung normal force. Kahit nasa ang dimension pa siya, yun yung una nating hahanapin. So in this case, ang normal force natin ay long Y. It's a long Y. So therefore, we will apply second law sa Y first. Okay? Unahin natin siya sa Y. Kasi kailangan nga natin yung normal force. So let's have the summation of forces along Y is equal to MAY. Pataas ay positive. But what's the acceleration of this object? So the acceleration is only along X. So that means it is not accelerating along Y. So the acceleration along Y is 0. So therefore, the summation of forces along Y is 0. Okay? So that means pataasan NA minus WA is equal to 0. So NA is equal to WA. So NA is equal to mass A times G. So that is 25 times 9.8. So the normal force along A on A is 245 newtons. Ayan. Okay? 245 newtons. So the only forces acting along Y is N and A. Sorry, N and W. N and W. Again. Now let's proceed to summation of forces along X is equal to MAX. So anything goes to right will be positive. Otherwise, negative. Okay, so how many forces do we have along X? We only have yung tension and then the frictional force. But tension is to the right, so that's positive. And then frictional force is negative. So that's equal to mass A times positive A. Because A is moving to the right. Okay, so therefore tension minus, so what's our frictional force? So coefficient of friction times normal, A is equal to MA times positive A. So that's equal to T minus, coefficient of friction natin is 0.2 times 245 is equal to 25A. So tension minus 245 times 0.2, so it's 49. 49 is equal to 25A. So this will be our second equation. Okay, so we have two equations with two unknowns. So this is our first equation and this is our second equation. Wait. Talagang parehong positive yung tension na. Sa bagay. Okay? Oo nga. Pareho naman sila. O sige. Oh, now, let's solve simultaneously. So we have tension minus 147 is equal to negative 15A. So this is from the first equation. Right? So all we need is the acceleration, not the tension. So let's cancel tension. Okay, so if you cancel tension, we need to subtract the equations. So negative. So this will be positive and this will be positive. So that will be cancelled. And that's 49 minus 147. So that's 98. That's equal to 48. And then divide this by 40. So the acceleration is 2.45 meters per second square. Ayan. Okay, 2.45 meters per second square. So, kaka-check ko lang. O yan, 2.45. And since nakuha na natin yan, so therefore, okay, so therefore, if the initial is 0, time is equal to 3 seconds. So what is the displacement? So displacement na lang. Okay, so delta, sige na nga, y yung gagamitin ko. Y. Ayan. So delta y is equal to VIT plus 1/2 AT squared. So this is 0. So delta y is equal to 1/2 times 2.45 times 3 squared. So what's our delta y? Sorry. It should be negative. Tama ba? Pababa kasi. So acceleration is that. So that means it's negative. Ayan. So the answer is negative. .025 meters, or the distance traveled is 11.025. Hindi pala nakikita. 25 meters. Okay, since we already found our acceleration, magnitude na acceleration, then let's apply the given also, the initial velocity, which is 0. The given time is 3 seconds, so we need to find the displacement. So our formula we use is this one. So delta y is a VIT plus 1/2 AT squared, wherein acceleration is negative based on the direction because it's moving downward. Okay, so that means applying that, so we'll have 1/2 times negative 2.45 times 3 squared. So we'll have a displacement of negative 11.025 meters. So therefore, the distance traveled is 11.025. So tama ba yung computation ko? Pwede bang pa-compute? Tama naman. Ayan. Okay, any question on this example? Walang question. Okay, so let's have the same example, but we are given this different question. Yeah. Same example, but different question. So the coefficient of kinetic friction is the same, mass is the same, mass A is the same, mass B is the same, but this time we are given an acceleration of 7.7 meters per second squared towards the left. Ang tanong ay, how large ang horizontal force must pull block A to give it an acceleration of 0.7 meters per second squared towards the left? So, ang tanong ay, kung hihilain ko daw ito dito, ayan, ang acceleration nito ay magiging negative 0.7 meters per second squared. At syempre ito, kung ito ay pupunta sa kaliwa, ito naman ay pupunta sa taas. At ang magiging acceleration niya din ay 0.7 meters per second squared. Ayan. Kung ang force na yan ay mag-create ng acceleration na 0.7, ano ang magnitude ng force na yan? Ano ang magiging magnitude ng applied force na yan? Okay. Okay, class. The approach is the same, as in definitely the same. So let me draw everything again. So we have the magnitude, the weight, A, and we have the normal A, and we have the tension. Okay? Kaya lang, ang direction of friction ay magbabago. Tama ba? Kasi ang object natin A ngayon is pupunta siya sa kaliwa. So therefore, ang friction natin dito ay pupunta ng kanan. Ayan. Okay. Ayan. So same din dito, pero dito same lang. So we have the weight B, and then we also have the tension. Okay. Ayan. So unahin na natin siya sa, okay, same lang naman din. Unahin natin ngayon siya sa B. So at mass B, okay, so drawin natin yung FBD. Okay, so yung FBD niya ay, so we have the tension, and then yung weight B, and then acceleration niya ay pataas. So positive acceleration. So if you will get the summation of forces along y is equal to MAY, pataas ay positive. So we'll have the tension minus weight B is equal to mass B times A, positive A. Okay, so tension minus mass weight B is 15 times 9.8 is equal to 15 times 0.7. So what is tension? Diretso na natin. Okay, 157.5 newtons. Ayan. So may question ba dyan? My question, or we need to stop for a while? We need to stop for a while. Okay, wala. Okay, now let's proceed to our second mass A. Okay, let's draw the FPD of mass A. Okay, mass A. Okay, so what are the forces? So we have the tension, then the frictional force, we have the normal force, and then we have yung weight A, okay, tension, friction, normal, weight, and then the applied force. Ayan. Okay. Okay, class. Pag ganito, kagaya ng sabi ko kanina, pag meron tayong frictional force na coefficient of friction na given, una nyo pa rin nga hanapin is yung normal force. Okay, normal force pa rin yung unahin. So, sandali, ang acceleration para natin ay nandito. So, that's negative A. So, normal force natin is along Y. So, we'll start with Y. So, summation of forces along Y is MAY. Pataas ay positive. Yeah. But since wala tayong acceleration along Y, it's purely X kasi pakaliwa lang siya. So, therefore, this is 0. So, what are the forces along Y? So, that's NA minus weight A is equal to 0. So, NA is equal to weight A. So, NA is equal to 25 times 9.8. So, NA is equal to 245 pa rin. So, 245 newtons. Okay? Next, well, let's proceed to the summation of forces along X is equal to MAX. Pakanan ay positive. Now, let's focus on the forces along X. So, we only have 3. So, 1, 2, and 3. So, lang left and right lang naman. So yung mga pakanan ay positive, mga pakaliwa ay negative. So we'll have tension plus friction minus force is equal to mass A times negative acceleration. So because it's to the left, assumption natin to the right ay positive. Ayan. So tension we are given, okay, tension is 245 plus ang friction natin is mu NA minus F is equal to negative 25A. Negative 25A. So 245 plus coefficient of friction is 0.2 times 245 minus F is equal to negative 25 times negative 0.7. So what is the frictional force? Ay, sorry. But tension 245. Hindi naman 245 yung tension. But, okay, no. Okay, tension natin is 157.5. Bakit naman? Okay, 157.5. That's 157.5. Ayan. Tataka ko, 157.5 plus 0.2 times 245 minus 25 times 0.7. It's 189 newtons. Tama bang computation ko? Um, Fifteen times 9.8 plus 15 times 0.7. Huh? Ay, sorry. Naka-negative na pala to, so that should be positive. So yung force is equal to, magpa-plus pala siya, plus 25 times 0.7. 224 newtons. Ayan. 157.5 plus 0.2 times 245 plus 25 times 0.7. Okay, 224 newtons. 11.8. Hmm. Sandali. May question. Sandali. Daniel. Parang na ba yung sagot natin? Daniel. Saan yung sagot mo na 11.8? Okay, nag-shortcut ba ako? Ginawa ko ay negative kasi itong F. So, tinranspose ko siya sa left, tapos ito naman yung transpose ko. So, naging F is equal to 157.5 plus 0.2 times 245 plus 25 times 0.7. Kaya siya naging ganyan. Tinranspose ko yung negative F. Pinagpalitan ko sila ng lugar. Okay. So, meron din tanong dito na pwede bang magkabaliktad yung arrows sa T and F? I'm not sure what you mean. So, magpapalitan ko lang to? Yeah. Yes. Ang importante lang yung direction. So, basta't alam natin na yung they are moving on towards east or towards the right. Wala namang problema. Hindi ko lang sila mapagpatong doon sa dito sa line na to kasi hindi ko lang sila pwedeng pagpatungin dito sa line na to. Kaya binaba ko lang yung F. Pero minsan tatlo sila, tinataas ko naman yung F. Para lang hindi magulong tignan. Pang-importante yung direction nila ay ayan, visible. Okay? Ayan. So, meron pa bang ibang tanong? Okay, wala. Okay, so kung wala na, we'll proceed to our next example. Ito yung ating next example. Ayan. Okay. The two boxes have identical masses, 40 kilograms both. Both experience a sliding friction force with a coefficient of kinetic friction of 0.15. Find the acceleration of the boxes and the tension in the cord. Okay. So, class, same din pa naman ng approach. Approach is still the same. So, we need to identify the forces acting on each object. So, since meron tayong dito, wala tayong applied force, so we still need to identify all the forces. So, let's say on one, we still have yung weight A, and then since nasa surface siya, so we have yung normal A. And then, since may tali dito, meron siyang tension. Okay, class. Since merong friction, ito yung question. So, we need to be consistent. Tatandaan nyo to. Medyo hindi natin alam kung saan yan pupunta. Kumwari, di natin alam. Kasi wala naman tayong applied force. Unless meron tayong applied force sa A or applied force sa B, we can immediately conclude the direction of the acceleration or the motion of the objects. But in this case, we don't know if mag-accelerate ba talaga or hindi. Possible naman kasi yon. Pero in case mag-accelerate talaga sila, ano yung magiging direction? Ayan. So, para lang maging consistent. So, halimbawa dito, bawa lang, sisingit ko lang, mamaya to. So, hindi natin alam kung saan bababa, ano ba talaga yung bababa? Yung 100 ba or yung 50? Or 100 ba or 50? So, mag-a-assume tayo. Pero kung nag-assume tayo at nakuha natin ay negative, it doesn't mean you're wrong. Ang ibig lang sabihin, baliktad lang yung assumption. Pero tama pa rin naman yung sagot. Okay? So, ganito din naman. So, magiging consistent ka lang. So, halimbawa dito, bababa yung 100. Siyempre, ang mangyayari sa 50, tataas siya. Or baliktad, dito ay bababa, yung 100 naman yung tataas. O magiging consistent lang sa mangyayari dun sa motion. Hindi naman pwedeng pareho silang tataas or pareho silang bababa. Yun yung sinasabi kong maling and hindi consistent. Okay? So, hindi nagiging consistent. So, pag-aralan lang natin or isipin natin kung ano yung magiging motion ng object. So, limbawa dito, sa example natin, ano yung assume nating motion nila if inahanap natin is acceleration. So, medyo ano naman, so parang meron naman tayong idea saan pupunta. Pupunta ay, siyempre, parang mahirap naman yata ito ay pupunta sa kaliwa. So, bababa sila. So, ibig sabihin, ito ay bababa at ito naman ay pupunta sa kanan. So, yun ang pagiging consistent na sinabi ko. Or kung gusto ninyo, ito pupunta sa kaliwa, ito naman pupunta sa taas. Pwede na naman. Kaya lang, oo, expect na natin na magiging negative yung sagot. Okay? So, yeah. So, yan. Kung ang motion ng object A natin is to the right, so, kasi kailangan natin siya para sa friction. So, yung friction natin, syempre, will be opposite that motion and should be in this direction. So, let's call that F of A. Ayan, F of A. Okay, next, let's proceed to B. Sa B naman ay, so what are the forces acting on it? We also have yung weight B. We have the normal force which is perpendicular to the surface. Let's call that normal B. And then we have a rope dito. So tension is away from the object. So let's call that T. Same lang na yung pangalan kasi they are on the same rope or same cable. And then, ano pa? Yung frictional force. Since sinassume natin it will move in this direction, so friction should be opposite that. So let's call that F of G. Ayan. Okay? My question sa sa identification ng forces dun sa dalawang object natin. Have I missed something? You tell me. You think I have missed something? Wala. Should we continue? Okay, so probably we'll continue. Okay, let's begin with our FBD. So, ang FBD natin. Okay, so let's have it as mass A. Mass A muna. So, what are the forces acting on mass A? So, we have the tension. And then we have the normal force. We have the weight. And then we have the frictional force. And acceleration is in this direction. Okay, class. Do we need the normal force? So if we have a friction, so kailangan natin yung normal. So doon muna natin siya sisimulan. Okay? So sa kung nasaan yung normal. So yung normal ay nasa summation of forces along y is equal to MAY. Pataas ay positive. But wala naman tayong acceleration along y, so therefore this is 0. So we'll have normal A minus weight A is equal to 0. Okay. So normal A is equal to weight A. So normal A is equal to 40 times 9.8. Ayan. So normal A is equal to 392 newtons. Ayan. 392 newtons. Okay. Next, so let's proceed to X. Kung nasan yung ating acceleration. So the summation of forces along X is MAX. Pakanan ay positive. So what are the forces along X? So we have the tension, which is pakanan, minus F of A. That's equal to MA times positive A. Okay, tension minus friction natin is mu NA. So that's equal to MAA. So tension minus 0.15 times 392 is equal to 48. So tension minus 58.8 is equal to 48. So this is our first equation. Okay, so that's our first equation. Okay, now let's proceed to our mass B. Ayan. Sa mass B tayo. Kaya lang class, sa mass B, since naka-incline siya, naka-slant siya, di ba mag-drawing tayo ng bagong axis. Okay, magro-rotate tayo ng axis such that the x-axis is parallel to the surface. So, kung ito yung surface natin, so dapat yung x-axis is parallel sa kanya. So, this is our x-axis. And then, nandito yung y-axis natin. Ayan. Okay? X and Y. So, if you will draw the FDD, ayan. So, pwede kong gawin yan. So, therefore, I will have yung normal ko ay pataas. Normal B. Friction is to the left. And tension also is to the left. And then, ang weight ko ay yung weight natin ay nasa fourth quadrant. So, nandito yung ating weight. And acceleration is along X. So, it's along X. So, 8. Okay, yung 30 degrees na angle natin is nandito siya sa y-axis. So, 30 degrees. Ayan. So, any question on the FBD of our second object, object B? Any question on object B? Wala? Okay, so let's proceed. Ay. Okay, since we need again yung normal force, we need to solve it first. So, yung normal force natin ay nasa y. Kaya lang kunin muna natin yung component ng ating weight. So, nandito yung kanyang weight bx at meron siya dito weight by. Ayan. So, parang hindi na natin isipin yon. Okay, so yung normal force natin is nasa y. So, let's have the summation of forces along y is MAY, wherein pataas will be positive. Okay, but the acceleration is along x, so therefore AY is also 0. So we'll have NB minus WBY is equal to 0. So normal B then is equal to WBY. But WBY is equal to W. Since nakadikit sa kanya yung angle na yon, so that will be cosine 30. Okay, cosine 30. But if you want to get the complementary angle, which is 60. So WY will be W sine 60. So kayo nang bahala kung ano yung gusto yung gamitin sa trigo. Basta SOHCAHTOA lang. Okay, so therefore, NB is equal to 40 times 9.8 times cosine 30. So the normal force is a 339.48 newtons. Okay, next. So let's proceed to the summation of forces along X is equal to MAX. Pakanan ay positive. So what are the forces along X? So wala na yung dalawang Y. So focus tayo sa X. So yun yung WBX minus F of B minus T is equal to MB times positive A. Okay, so what's WBX? So that's W sine 30 minus mu n minus T is equal to MBA. Ayan. So this is 40 times 9.8 sine 30 minus 0.15 times 339.48. So that's a normal force on B. Minus T is equal to 48. Okay, so let's simplify this to 40 times 9.8 times sine 30 minus 0.15 times 339.48. Okay, so that's but negative yung sagot ko. Class, how about you? Pero naman silang 40, diba? 40 times 9.8 times sine 30. Hindi, i-clear ko nga yung calcu ko. Baka mali. 40 times 9.8 times sine 30 minus 0.15 times 339.48. Ayun. Okay, it's 145. So 145.08 minus t is equal to 48. So this is our second equation. So tama ba ang na-compute ko? Baka mali? Okay, so thank you. Again, then again, so we have the first and the second equation. So let's solve them simultaneously. So itatapat ko na lang dito. So that's a negative 58.8 plus t is equal to 48. Ayan. Let's just add para makancel ito. So we'll have, what's that? 145 minus 58.8. So that's 86.28 is equal to 80A. So divide natin to ng 80. So the acceleration is 1.08 meters per second squared. Ayan. Tama ba? 145 minus 58.8 divided by 80. Okay, 1.08. Okay. So therefore, at equation 1, so doon natin kukunin yung tension. So equation 1 ito. So tension minus 58.8 is equal to 40 times 1.08. So what's the tension? A 101.94 newtons. So yan yung ating sagot. 101.94. Okay, so wala kayong question? Yes. So let's proceed to another example. I like this one. Hindi, wag naman ito. Panghuli natin ito. So let's solve this example. Yeah. Okay, so this one is a part of a multiple tension na. Okay, may question yata. Sandali. Same lang answer ang makuha kapag MB ang kukuhanin. What MB? Kung dito ko siya kukunin? Yes, yes, yes. Dapat. Dito. Yeah. Kung dito ko siya sa equation 2, sa equation 2 ko siya kukunin, yes. Ah, same lang dapat. Okay? So next. Ayan. So if the weight is 16 newtons, find A. The tension, wait. Okay, the tension in the diagonal string, and B, the forces F1 and F2. Okay. All right, class. So let me tell you something about this. So, yung FPD kasi natin, so I have told you last time na yung pag nagdo-drawing tayo ng FPD, it's always object per object or mass per mass. Tama ba? Pag mga ganito yung examples natin, mga multiple tension, so maraming tali. So, kino-consider din na parang mass doon sa FBD, yung knot, kung saan nag-meet yung mga tali. So, pwede rin tayong mag-FBD doon. Okay? So, mag-FBD doon. So, pwede din. So, ilan ang tali dito na hindi identified? So, ang hindi naka-identify na tali dito ay, so we have itong tali dito, yung tali dito, at saka yung tali dito. Ayan. So, let's just assume this tension 1, tension 2, and tension 3. Okay? Tension 1, tension 2, and tension 3. But based on the problem, ang pinapakuha lang sa atin is yung tension 2, which is the diagonal string. And given naman tayo ng mga angles na yan, so therefore, so we can solve naman yung tension. Ngayon, ilan ang ating i-consider na FPD? Maliban doon sa mass, yung mga knots or yung mga tali, kung saan sa Tagalog yun. Sa Kapampangan na lang ko sa Tagalog. Buhol. Saan nagbuhol? Tama ba ako? Saan nagbubuhol yung mga tali? Yun yung pwede natin i-consider yon as a mass doon sa FBD natin. So yung dot lang sa mass. So ilan ang pwede nating i-draw na FBD? So maliban doon sa object, so pwede rin tayo dito sa knot na to at dito sa knot na to. Ayan. So FBD dito at saka FBD doon. Okay? Pero ang tanong ay saan ba kayo lagi dapat magsimula? Okay, simulan nyo lagi doon sa may given, which is the mass. So yung mass yung unahin ninyo sa FBD. Kung FBD natin yung mass, okay? Ayan. So yung mass natin. So ano ba yung mga forces acting doon sa mass? So we have yung weight niya, W, at saka syempre yung tension, which is away from the object. So tension 3. Okay, so kung drawing natin yung FBD nito, so yung FBD ng weight, so we'll have yung tension 3 at saka yung weight. Okay. Ang question, nag-accelerate ba? Hindi naman kasi sila gumagalaw. So, ang acceleration natin ay 0. Kasi hindi naman sila gumagalaw. So, therefore, if you will get the tension 3, so summation of forces along y is equal to MAY, pataas ay positive, but this is 0. So, therefore, tension 3 minus weight is equal to 0. So, tension 3 is equal to 60 newtons. Ayan. Okay? 16 newtons. Next, then you proceed to the next one. So pagkatapos mo dito, susunod ka na dito. Okay, susunod ka na dito. So tawagin na natin yung NOT 1. Ayan. So let's have the FBD on NOT 1. Ayan. So what are the forces in NOT 1? So we'll have yung tension dito away from NOT 1. And then yung force dito at saka yung tension dito, tension 3. So therefore, let's draw the FBD. So FBD niya ay nandito yung tension 3, nandito yung F2, at nandito naman yung T2. Ayan. At ang T2, kung 45 yon, okay, so ibig sabihin perpendicular ito. So ito din ay 45 degrees. Ayan. 45 degrees. Okay. Ngayon, since may angle yung T2, kailangan natin yung kanyang component. So tawagin natin tong T2y at ito naman ay T2x. T2y and T2x. Okay. Ang question, wala tayo kasing value ng F2. So, wag tayong may tinatype si Daniel. Dito sa FBD natin, dun sa summation of forces natin na dito sa FBD ng weight, so, wala kasing acceleration. The system is not moving. It is static. It's not moving. Okay. Ayan. So, dito na tayo. Yan. So, kung kukunin natin siya along x, wala naman tayong value ng F2. Tama ba? So, hindi natin siya pwedeng kunin along x. So, unahin na natin siya sa y. So, let's have the summation of forces along y is equal to, pwede ba yung diretso ko na 0? Kasi it's not moving naman. So, it's 0. So, we'll have pataas ay positive. Kasi acceleration ng buong system is 0. Okay, so therefore, T2y minus T3 is equal to 0. So T2y is equal to T3. But what is T2y? So that's T2, that's opposite 45. Sine 45 is equal to 60. Tama ba? 60. So divide natin to ng sine 45. So therefore, T2 is equal to 84.85. Ayan. Okay, class. Bababa lang ako. Pag-isipan ninyo, paano natin kukunin ng F2? Kaya na natin kunin ng F2 dyan. Okay, so pwede na rin sagutin. Ano yung value ng F2? Okay, so what's the answer? Have you got the answer? Kaya. Si Joshua may sagot. Joshua? 60.71. So let's see. Okay, so let me go to the summation of forces along X is equal to 0 as well. Pakanan ay positive. So we'll have F2 minus T2X. So that's equal to 0. So F2 is equal to T2X. Ayan. So F2 is equal to T2 times cosine 45. So F2 is equal to 84.85 cosine 45. That's our F2. Oh, 60. Okay, 60. Okay, 60. Okay, so 60 newtons. Ayan. So, parang sabay-sabay na natin halos sinusolve yung mga nakukuha natin. Okay, next. So, we're done with one. So, let's proceed to the next knot. So, let's call that knot 2. Ayan. So, knot 2. So, na knot 2 na tayo. So, FBD ng knot 2. Ayan. Okay, so what are the forces acting on knot 2? So we have T1. Then we have tension 2. And we also have F1. Ayan. Okay, so we have T1. And then we have F1. And then we have here T2. And this is 45 degrees. Ayan. So don't forget the components of our force, our tension. So nandito yung ating T2Y and nandito yung T2X. Ayan. Eh since ang concern lang naman natin is yung F1, so therefore, let's proceed to the summation of forces along X is equal to 0. So pakanan ay positive. So T2X minus F1 is equal to 0. Or F1 is equal to T2X. So F1 then is T2 cosine 45. So F1 is equal to 84.85 times cosine 45. So what's our F1? I think it's also 60 newtons. Yeah, 60 newtons. Pareho lang, no? Okay. So those are our answers for this example. So para naman silang 16 newtons. Paano malalaman kung sine or cosine? If the angle is nakadikit sa kanya, it's cosine. Kaya nga katawa, adjacent. Adjacent means katabi niya or okay, adjacent. Pag sine, opposite niya, malayo sa kanya. Kaya katawa. So, opposite. Basta nakadikit sa kanya, it's cosine. Pag hindi nakadikit sa kanya, halimbawa, ito yung angle. So since nakadikit yung T2X sa angle, cosine siya sa T2X. At sa T2Y nun, sine siya kasi opposite. So ganito din naman ang nangyayari dito. Ayan. Since ang ginawa natin is T2Y kasi naging sine 45 siya, even though pareho kasi silang 45 kaya pareho lang yung sagot. Nagkataon lang. Pero pag halimbawa, so T2Y tayo, kaya sine ang ginamit ko kasi opposite siya nung T2Y. Hindi naman siya adjacent. Basta ito lang tinatanda ko, pag nakadikit, cosine. Kaya halimbawa dito sa T2X, di ba nakadikit yung 45, kaya naging siyang cosine. Eh yung T2Y, kaya siya naka-sine kasi malayo siya sa cosine. It's opposite. Not adjacent. Okay? Okay. So let's have our next example. Okay, so this is our next example. Ayan. Okay. So two blocks are connected by a cord passing over a small frictionless pulley. Rest on frictionless planes. So which way will the system move when the blocks are released from rest? What is the acceleration of the blocks and what is the tension in the cord? Ang dami nating hahanapin. Una ay saan ba mag-move yung objects? Pangalawa, ano yung acceleration ng objects? At pangatlo, ano yung tension ng objects natin? Okay, class. So, ang una nating isipin dito ay maging consistent tayo dun sa motion. So, saan ba pupunta yung dalawang object? So, kayo pumili. Bababa ba yung 100 or bababa yung 50? I will let you decide. Bababa yung 100 or bababa yung 50? Joshua, what do you think? I'll let you decide. So, ano ang bababa? Pag binitawan natin yung dalawa, pag binitawan natin, saan mag-move yung objects? Yung bang 100, bababa, tapos tataas yung 50, or baliktad, bababa 50, tataas yung 100. Remember, hindi sila pareho ng angle, and then frictionless silang pareho. Baka, ang ano lang natin dito is maging consistent tayo. At saka meron tayong initial na i-assume. Ay importante lang kasi maging consistent dun sa assumption. Okay. Joshua, what do you think? Ikaw na lang mag-decide para sa amin. Yung 100. Sige. So, ang suggestion ay yung 100 bababa. Okay. So, yung 100 ay bababa. So, therefore, ang acceleration ng 100 pag bingitawan ay nandito direction. So, that means, pag bumaba ito, yung 50 naman ay tataas. Okay? Pwede naman baliktad. So, it's up to you. Basta ang importante ay maging consistent lang dun sa motion. So, yan. Okay. So, same lang din naman ang gagawin natin. So, we'll still identify the forces acting on each object. And then, FBD. And then, magsusolve tayo. So, let's identify the forces. So, we have the weight. Sabihin na natin itong weight 1. And then, normal force perpendicular to the surface. And then, tension. Ayan. Away from the object. Since wala tayong frictional force, wala tayong lalagay ng frictional force. Okay, next. Dito naman sa 50, same din. Weight is always downward. Weight 2. Okay, normal is perpendicular to the surface. And then frictional force, so tension is always away from the object. Ayan. Okay. Now, let's draw the FBD for each object. So let's have the weight mass 1. Okay, mass 1. Ayan, class. Since pareho silang naka-slant, so that means we will rotate axis, di ba? So that one of the axes, particularly the x-axis, is parallel to the surface. So sabihin na natin ito yung parallel sa surface. So nandito yung ating tension. X-axis. And then, nandito yung ating y-axis. Ayan. So tension, friction, weight, and okay, so therefore, knowing that, so nakita natin yung tension is in this direction. Normal is pataas. Normal 1. And then weight is on the third quadrant. And then yung angle, di ba sabi ko nakadikit lagi sa y-axis. Yan. Okay. And don't forget the acceleration. So acceleration is to the left. So to the left, so we'll have negative 8. Yeah. Okay. Okay, next, do not forget the components of our weight because we need them by component. So we'll have the 1y and then double 1, w1x. Ayan. Okay. Okay, class, this time. Di ba sabi ko kanina, pag merong friction, kailangan nyo yung normal. Ngayon, wala tayong friction. Kung wala tayong frictional force, that means we can skip and do not compute for normal anymore unless it is being asked. But this time, it's not being asked and there's no frictional force. So we can skip yung normal. So let's not get normal. So diretso na tayo ngayon sa x component. So magsasummation of forces na tayo along x which is MAX. Wherein pakanan ay positive. So nag-guess nyo ba? Why I skip y? Because I don't have any use for normal force. Because we don't have the system we are dealing with now is frictionless. I don't have a use for normal force, so I don't need to get it because I won't be using it. Unless there's frictional force, though. I need it, but now there's none, so we don't need it. So let's just skip it and then proceed to x na. Okay? Kung nasan yung acceleration and then tension. So, pakanan ay positive yung tension minus W1x. That's equal to mass 1 times negative A. Negative A. Okay, so we have tension minus, ano yung W1x? So W1, since W, andito yung angle, opposite niya, so that is sine 30. So that's equal to mass 1 times negative A. So that is tension times, weight 1 is 100 times 9.8 times sine 30 is equal to negative 108. So that is tension minus 100 490 is equal to negative 108. Okay, so let this be our first equation. Okay? Kuha ba? May question ba? Okay, now let's proceed to our next FPD. Weight mass 2. Ayan. So, ang mass 2 natin is same din. We need to rotate the axis so that the x-axis will be parallel to the surface. Ayan. Ayan. So, it will be parallel to the surface. So, ito yung x-axis natin. Ito yung y. Ayan. So, let's draw the forces. So, the forces are, so tension is here. Normal, 2. And then weight 2 is on the fourth quadrant. Ayan. Weight 2. And then angle is here. So, that's a 53.1. Okay. Okay. Similar to that of the first mass. So, we need to get the weight to y and then yung weight to x. And acceleration pala is in this direction. So, it's also negative. Ayan. So, ang question natin dito ay, Meron ba tayong friction with respect to mass 2? Since wala, again, we don't need to compute for normal 2 kasi wala na tayong paggagamitan sa kanya. So, gagawin lang natin ay isosolve na natin siya along x. Pakanan ay positive. So, we'll have weight 2x minus tension is equal to m2 times negative 8. So, that's the weight 2 times sine 53.1 minus tension is equal to negative m2a. So that is 50 times 9.8 times sine 53.1 minus tension is equal to negative 58. So let's simplify. So it's 50 times 9.8 times sine 53.1. It's 391.85 minus t is equal to negative 58. So this will be our second equation. Tama ba ako? 391. Ayan. Okay? Now let's solve simultaneous with equation 1. Setting equation 1. So pagpapalitan ko lang. So 490 plus t is equal to negative 100a. So this is from first equation. Then we solve simultaneously. So let's just add. So cancel. Ano to? 390 minus 391.85 minus negative 98.15 is equal to negative 158. So divide this by negative 158. So what's our acceleration? So acceleration is, okay, so 0.65 meters per second squared. 0.65. 0.65 yan. Okay? 0.65. So the answer is positive. That means the assumption is correct. Okay, so the assumption is correct. Assumption is correct. Things should be moving in that direction. Ayan. So letter A, 100 down and then 50 up. Yeah. Okay, so yun sa A. B, what's the acceleration? It is 0.65 meters per second squared. And C, what is the tension? So let's get it at equation 1. Okay, ito yung equation 1. So tension minus 490 is equal to negative 100 times 0.65. So what's the tension? 425 newtons. Ayan. Okay, 425. Okay, so any question? Okay, class. So wala yung question. So that's it for today.